Welcome to the Explainer. All right, today we're going to decode the invisible system that makes the entire internet work, the domain name system, or DNS. You know, it's the silent, unsung hero that connects you to pretty much everything you do online.
Okay, so let's get right into it by looking at a huge problem the internet has to solve. See, you and I, we think in names, like Netflix.com. But computers, they only understand numbers. Specifically, these long strings of numbers called IP addresses. DNS is basically the global translator that bridges that gap for all of us.
So how in the world do you build a system that can connect billions of people to millions of websites every single second of every day? Well, the answer isn't as simple as you might think.
You know, the first idea you'd probably have, the most obvious one, would be to just have one huge master list, right? A single giant server with every single domain name and its matching IP address. But as it turns out, that would be an absolutely terrible idea, and for three really big reasons.
First off, a single server would be a massive security risk. I mean, if that one thing went down, the entire internet would just break. It also couldn't possibly handle the sheer volume of traffic we're talking about. And maybe most importantly, in a global internet, who gets to control it? Nobody could ever agree on which country or company should own such a powerful resource.
So instead of one big list, the pioneers of the internet designed DNS to be this brilliant decentralized network. It spread all across the globe with all these layers of authority and no single point of failure. But to really get how it works, we've got to go over a few key terms first.
First up is something called a DNS zone. The easiest way to think about this is like a dedicated folder. All the specific address information for one single domain, like Netflix.com, is kept right inside its own zone.
A name server is the actual computer, the physical hardware that holds that zone file, that folder of information. Its whole job is to just sit there and answer questions about the domains it's responsible for.
And this is the most important concept right here. For any given domain in the entire world, there is one name server that is considered authoritative. This means it holds the official, correct master copy. It is the ultimate source of truth. No questions asked.
Okay, so we've got the lingo down. Now let's actually follow the journey. When you type www.netflix.com into your browser, your computer sends out a request that has to walk the tree to find that one single authoritative answer.
It all starts with a special server from your internet provider, which we call a resolver. It does all the heavy lifting for you. Its very first stop is one of just 13 global root servers, the absolute top of the DNS food chain, and it asks a simple question. Hey, where can I find info on www.netflix.com?
And the root server's response is just fascinating. It says, I have no idea what the IP address for Netflix is. But it doesn't need to. Its only job is to know who manages all of the .com domains. So it just points the resolver in the right direction, one level down the tree.
Right, so following that lead, the resolver now goes to the .com server. That's a top-level domain or TLD server, and it asks the exact same question.
And this is where you really see the beauty of the hierarchy. The .com server also doesn't have the final IP address. But its job is to know who is the official authoritative source for Netflix.com, so it gives your resolver the address for that specific name server. So for the final step, the resolver goes directly to the source of truth, that authoritative name server that Netflix itself controls. No more middlemen. It's now asking the one server in the world that is guaranteed to have the correct answer.
And boom, because this server is the source of truth, it replies with total confidence. It doesn't pass the buck, it just gives the final answer, the specific IP address your computer has been looking for this whole time. The journey is complete.
Okay, so that's the ideal path. But what about, the real world? Let's talk about some of the detours and shortcuts this whole system uses to stay incredibly fast.
Sometimes the answer you get back isn't an IP address. Instead, it's something called a CNAME, which is basically just an alias. It's like getting a note that says, hey, the person you're looking for, they now go by this other name. And that forces the resolver to start the entire tree-walking journey all over again for that new name.
So you might be thinking, does it really do that whole three-step dance every single time you visit a website? Well, no. To avoid that, your ISP's resolver takes a critical shortcut. It saves or caches the answers it gets, so the next time you ask, it can just give you the answer instantly from its memory. It's a bit of a trade-off. You get lightning speed for an answer that is potentially a little out of date, but almost all the time, it works flawlessly.
So that explains how DNS works day to day. But how does a brand new domain, like say your own company's website, actually get plugged into this huge global system in the first place?
It's kind of like a four-step dance, and it involves two different types of companies that people get confused about all the time. First, you buy the name. Then you set up all the technical info in a zone file. After that, you tell the world where that file is. And finally, the whole system updates to make your site live on the internet.
Now, this brings up a distinction that trips a lot of people up, but it's super important. Think of it this way. The registrar is the sales team. They're the storefront, like a GoDaddy, that sells you the right to use a name. But the DNS hosting provider, like an AWS or Cloudflare, they're the tech team. They're the ones who actually run the infrastructure, the name servers that do all the work we just talked about.
So let's zoom out for a second and just recap why this complex, layered, and mostly invisible system is truly one of the most critical pieces of infrastructure in our entire modern world.
At its heart, DNS translates names we understand into numbers computers understand. Its brilliant hierarchy is what allows it to scale to a global size without breaking a sweat. Resolvers methodically walk the tree to find the absolute truth. And finally, its mix of caching for speed and being distributed for safety makes it unbelievably resilient.
What it all comes down to is this. Without DNS, every single link you click, every app you open, every email you send would just fail. It proves that this elegant hierarchical system isn't just some part of the internet. It is the true, silent backbone of our entire digital world.